Welcome to Drinking Bros, presented by GhostBed.com. Yeah, welcome to Drinking Bros, kids. Friday afternoon show here. We got Bridget Phetasy on the show here today. I'm sorry, I was staring at your tiny hands again.
I know, they're really small. They're small.
What happened? What happened at birth?
Nothing happened. I'm a petite person-ish.
And but the hands were really tight. When you shook my hand, I felt like an Amber Alert was going to go.
Well, I wasn't going to say anything, but I caught her out in the backyard trying to bury acorns out there.
Was that what it was?
No, this is actually to catch a predator episode. Surprise!
Well, speaking of that,
Really?
Conor McGregor has been found liable of sexual assault.
Yeah, how does that work where you don't go to jail and you just pay a $250,000 fine? Is that what it is in Ireland?
Yeah, I guess. And if that's how it is, I'm moving to Ireland, brother. I can afford that.
Yeah, a lot of rapes going on in Ireland if it's $250,000.
Not full rape, right? Remember how the Republicans 10 years ago tried to change the language to forcible rape?
Sure.
As opposed to, just
What
casual
happened
rape.
to Conor?
Casual rape,
It's a little slippy. It's a little I slipped.
Whoopsies. I fell down.
Whoops.
I fell down.
I don't know. It was some girl in a bar. I think he just groped her or some shit.
Oh, and
Is that what it
cost
was?
him $250,000?
$250,000. And he actually went to court for it with him. I thought for sure he'd just pay it and be like, cool, I don't want to bother with it. Because there was a full trial and everything.
Right.
And so they just found him liable or guilty, or whatever you want to call it over there.
Let's see. He put her.
I'm not from Ireland.
He put her in a chokehold several times and later told her, "quote Now you know how I felt in the octagon where I tapped out 3 times."
Oh,
no
okay.
shit.
That's a little more extreme than groping her.
Well, maybe not. Maybe he was just showing her how to protect herself against somebody like him in the future.
Yeah, Gary, come choke this broad and let's see how she reacts.
Come choke the life out of her, and
Not
then
the
we'll kind
whole
of
way.
teach. No, not at all. Not at all.
Yeah.
But welcome to the show. So here's a weird story for you.
Okay.
I've been following you for years on Twitter.
Okay.
And I thought you were a very funny writer.
I'm glad you said on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you just said, I've been following you for years after the sexual assault story.
Yep. You live at 3625.
Yeah.
Here's a picture of you, and it's from like 30 feet away.
London Avenue.
Remember when you were trying to decide whether to move to Texas? I was the person pretending to be homeless outside.
I was the
house in
car
LA.
right behind you, sleeping in the bushes. But no, I'm a big fan because you're one of those few people that always had a really funny Twitter. I feel like back in the day, and I don't know how long you've been doing it. How long you been on Twitter?
I really started in like 2013 was when I always joke I quit drinking and drugs and then got addicted to Twitter. It was like my replacement addiction.
Was it really?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's when I really got ramped up.
It was you and another girl named Megan Amram that I was following.
Oh, Megan was really funny.
She used to be.
Yeah.
And then she fell off. She went to go write for Parks and Rec. And I think she got canceled for...
Did she?
Yeah. And then she kind of canceled herself for like some Asian jokes she told on Twitter. And I was just like, man, you were one of the edgiest writers there was. And then you end up canceling yourself, where I would have just told everybody to go fuck off.
Yeah, she's like I think she's a big producer. She's producing shows and stuff, I think, now in LA.
Yeah, yes. And
I don't think she's canceled.
I don't think she's...
Can I tell you the 2 tweets that got her in trouble?
Please.
And I'm going to immediately say something worse.
Mm-hmm.
Just, for science.
I mean, you would enjoy both of these.
Okay.
The first tweet was, "It's not politically correct to say retarded anymore. You have to call them Asian Americans."
Love it. Great joke. Yeah. Great joke. Yeah. What was the other one?
The other one is, "If I had a time machine, I'd go back in time and kill Hitler and all of the Jews and gypsies and gay people."
She tweeted that?
Another great joke. Yes.
That's funny.
And then she went back and apologized for it. Yeah. It was, I want to say 4 or 5 years ago.
It resurfaced in 2020.
Right.
Yes.
So I don't know when.
But
she
they're probably
tweeted
from like 2010 or something.
Wild West Twitter time, right?
Yeah, right. And I don't think she should have apologized for it, because that's who she was, and that was the aggressiveness of her writing, which will lead me to you. So I liked a bunch of your tweets, and I would like retweet them and all that other stuff. And then I got some DMs from some listeners, and they were like, "Hey, that chick's super fucking left." And I was like, I don't care. Comedy's comedy at that time.
Yeah.
And as your career has progressed, like you've gotten, 300,000 or 400,000 followers and everything else. And then a few weeks ago, I saw a video with you of why you voted for Donald Trump.
Yeah.
That you posted. What was the reaction like from your audience?
Oh, my audience was actually cool about it. Like, it's funny that people. So through this whole, since you probably started following me, I've been consistently called a libtard and a MAGA Karen. So I'm like
Yes.
it's depending on where you're coming from. I'm either not right enough or not left enough, which I think as a comedian, that's kind of where you should be. You should be making fun of everyone.
I agree, and I've always thought you were hilarious. So I was like, I don't really give a fuck what people are saying. And then the video happened.
Yeah, and again, that was a weird thing because I do write for Spectator, some just more thoughtful pieces about culture, and then I also do comedy. As a comedian, I was like, I don't know if I should even put this out there. As somebody who had a piece that kind of went viral about my indecision, like, should I vote for Trump? I talked to Mary Catherine Ham. We were joking about, like, all of our suburban mom friends being in group chats, being like, we're going to do this, huh? People who had never voted for him.
Yeah.
And then I felt like a coward voting for him and not being open about it because I had been so publicly on the fence. And for years, it's been, people were like, I thought your brand was political homelessness. I'm like, well, I hate that word brand anyway. I still feel slightly politically homeless. That doesn't mean you don't make a choice.
Right.
At a certain point. You can still feel like I still think no one's coming. Like, my political default is no one's coming to save you, but this is the direction I would like to see this country head in. And as more of a protest vote to just the left losing its mind. So I could have abstained from voting like I did in 2020, but I wanted to be one of the bodies that was counted in the popular vote. You don't vote, it's not getting counted, and I wanted it to be that, like, fuck you. The reaction, was I think some family members are upset, but I've shed lots of people along the way. My audience is, I would say, libertarian, former Bernie bros, anarchists, center right, and lots of disaffected liberals. So I don't think I actually think a lot of people like me voted for Trump. It's not like I'm just part of a larger trend that we saw play out.
How's it feel to be that close to Hulk?
Pretty good.
Yeah, Hulk Hogan.
Can
right
you
in front of
feel Hulkamania running
I can
wild?
feel it.
Yeah, it's running wild right through you. He
It
spoke at
is.
the RNC, and
I
now
know.
boom. He probably convinced. Was he the one that convinced you?
No,
to
but
vote for Trump?
It was weird. I was thinking about how I have this, like, stand-up routine that I do that when he did, he got nicked, he went down, he gets up, and he's like, fight, fight, fight. And I'm like, did Donald Trump just turn me on? And it was like the first time that I was like, I never really thought that he was, I was never sure whether his kind of thing was bravado or whether he was like projecting alpha or actual. And all the men were like, that's just showmanship. That's just what a man does. Any man would do that. And I was like, A, I don't think that's true.
It's
and
not.
B, I misjudged him then because I didn't think that he was the kind of man that would do that. So it was a moment where I was like, wow, I really have to, like, readjust my priors that I have about this person.
Yeah,
I've
it's
been in
interesting.
gunfights a lot.
Yeah.
And with people, the first time you're in one, people don't typically behave that way.
That's what I was saying.
Myself included. The first time I got shot at, we were walking towards this T intersection, and all of a sudden, you can, like, a snap over your head means the round is right over your head. And we hear that, and, like, my head just turtles down into my body a little bit. I'm like, oh, shit. And then, a split second later, I'm like, I better get the fuck out of the way.
Yeah.
Somebody is literally shooting at me with a long-range rifle right now. But my first reaction was just like, shit.
Yeah.
It wasn't to do whatever the fuck he did.
No, and this
to be
is what I was
honest.
saying. I've talked to men who have been in battle like yourself, and they always say you can't know how you're going to respond when you're under fire until you're actually under fire. You can train men all you want, but you're not going to know. And for him to do that, and I have long maintained, thank God he didn't just get swept away and leave America hanging in the grips of is he alive or not for hours.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, the ability to actually get up and be like, I'm good, I'm alive, and not have civil war break out while he's getting his ear repaired. It did make me, because there's the voting against the left, but it was somebody kind of pushed me to be like, but you did vote for this person. Why did you vote for them, and as opposed to not in 2020 or 2016?
Yeah, and for me, when he got shot, not only was there the moment on stage and the moment it happened and the moment he got up, but then another video went viral from somebody inside the hospital. And they were just there to get care.
Oh, I saw this.
Yeah, they were just there to get care, and they had read, it was all over the news, president had been shot and everything else, and they were taking him to the hospital and all that other stuff. And he walked into the hospital with the Secret Service. He's got blood on him and everything else.
And it was that same lady from the Secret Service looking confused again.
And you're like, what the fuck is going on? And this family was like, oh my God, he's alive.
Yeah.
He's alive. He's fucking alive. And then that video went viral, and I was like, holy shit. And then the world kind of stopped after that, and then, coverage and news, and it was wall to wall on every single network after that. But I always wondered how that played out. I mean, it's interesting to hear that was a big part of it for you, because that's what I thought as it happened, of like, if you're able to see a guy like that get up and, scream, fight, 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 fuck yeah, I was all in. Everybody else was all in, I thought, but I didn't know how people who were maybe on the fence, how that would affect them.
I'm sure the bravado played a role. I think there's also an element that's been unaccounted for thus far in all this post-election speculation, which is that people do not like to have their options taken away from them.
Yeah.
And they will choose, even if they think it's wrong, the thing that you tell them not to sometimes. Like the Republican Party right now thinks that it's in the driver's seat, that everybody's coming on board with them and believes in all their mission statements and blah, blah, blah. And I think that is a myopic assumption. I think there's still work to be done, right?
There's a lot of work to be done.
But the secret is in there somewhere. The secret is that give people more options and you will be more popular. That's what populism is. It's been the trend here since the neocons left the conservative party and became neocons. That's been the trend. Because it used to be that the left liked to spend money, the right liked to conserve money, right? And once the right started spending money as well, everybody's like, well, what's the fucking difference?
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And now people see the difference. It's not right versus left anymore. It's responsible and irresponsible.
Yeah, because even though I voted for him, if he doesn't do the shit that I voted for, I'm going to be pissed off about it. And, I'll voice my opinion the same as anyone else, where it's just like, all right, cool. This is what I want to see go down right now. And I want an actual change. And I want to see things enacted and people in office that can actually make a difference. Yeah. Now, we'll find out what happens through the confirmation process and all this other stuff.
But some people are already adjusting, and you, I think, were ahead of this. I think you were the only person I saw that predicted pronouns coming out of bios on Twitter.
Yeah.
You said that the day after the election, I think.
Yeah.
And AOC did it, I think, 72 hours later after you posted it.
Although they have said she did that over the summer, it was only noticed. So I don't know, that could be fake news because I've heard otherwise.
It's still on her Instagram.
You can check the Wayback Machine.
Yeah, you can check it on Twitter, but
it doesn't matter though. People are. It's still. I think a lot of people were like on board with this who didn't really want to be on board. And I do think you're right. I think, and this like coalition or realignment or whatever we're calling it, it's tenuous. It's the same. Somebody, when I was talking to Patrick Ruffini, he's like, there are people who voted for Obama and now they're voting for Trump. I'm like, I'm one of those people.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily, and the young people, it's not necessarily like that vote. I do think that the Republican Party is like, we've got this now on lock. And
it feels like it, yeah. But there's
you don't though.
You gotta work. You gotta work.
Social conversion happens in a couple of stages. The first stage is doubt. The second stage is an off-ramp, right? For people who realize they've been duped or want something different to get off the freeway and start this new path. But if they get off and the gas station there is closed, they're getting right back on the fucking freeway, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you got to deliver on what you said you're going to deliver
and
on.
I don't think there's, you see the liberal women, they're the only ones that didn't go right. The right is offering no off-ramp to them. This is something I'm really interested in because
it's mostly just dunking on people at the moment,
just dunking on them, but I'm genuinely worried about them just from a mental health perspective, but also you're not encouraging them to come over by just being like, ha ha, idiots, you're all mentally ill and crazy, which fair enough. But you still, it's like I was saying, you can't be like making fun of someone in an abusive relationship for not getting out or getting out soon enough.
Yeah.
You've got to get, they need an off ramp, and there's no off ramp at all.
Well, the right message would be to say, we may disagree, but you can get behind me when there's danger. I don't give a fuck what you do back there.
Right.
Right? Just fucking hang out back there. I got it. That would be the appropriate response, not, oh, you fucking dummy, look at you now. When's that ever worked? And for whom does it work?
That's how the left lost all of these people, is going, you fucking dummy.
Yeah.
So if the right just adopts that same tactic.
So write an article for Spectator, because I think it'll do well, about elitist right-wing people, because that's what you're seeing right now.
That's a good pitch.
No.
I will write
because
that.
Because the work hasn't been done. Yeah, we won. Great. But until shit is actually changed, like, I don't really give a fuck. Like, it's a cool honeymoon period right now for the next 60 days.
Yeah.
But on day one, I want to see those executive orders signed, all the shit that was promised with immigration and everything else. Those you can do day one, and you can knock those out and then really show people, all right, cool. At least what you voted for, I'm doing it right now.
Mm-hmm.
He did that last time in 2016 when he got in there. It was something crazy, like, I don't know, 26 orders or whatever he signed. But I want to see that happen, and then I want to see these people rush through, and then, great, let's try to figure it out from there.
Yeah.
I want to go back to something you said earlier about the text groups with the moms and things like that, because it's something my wife and I talk about a lot, where people were going back and forth on these text groups. What were they saying to you pre-election leading up to it?
Yeah, it was like Mary Catherine and I were talking about. We were all like, so we're going to do this, huh? We're all going to vote for him? Like, it was that it seemed like everyone was taking each other's temperature. And my audience, my subscribers, because it's more politically homeless, there's a lot of women, Gen X women in particular, and suburban moms, and people who weren't necessarily on board for Trump even in 2020. And this time around, they seemed much more open to him, willing to vote for him, ready to vote for him. And like I've said, we spent 4 years being told groceries weren't what they cost when we do the shopping.
Yep.
And that they're not teaching our kids in schools what we know is being taught to our kids in schools by people who largely don't have children and live in cities and don't cook and don't. So I think the gaslighting really pushed a lot of the suburban people over. And I do think the left and the Democrats kind of overestimated how much abortion would play into it. One, because 2022, it did play into it.
Yep.
And two, if you're in a state that already has legal abortion, that's not going to be high on your list of priorities to vote for, because you are more worried about what's being taught to your children and what is, the price of things, inflation, and being able to get a house.
Bob, did any of the swing states have ballot measures about abortion in the 24 cycle?
Let me check. There were states.
But
Arizona did, I think.
Arizona did.
Arizona, I know Ohio did.
The only other one I could think of was
Ohio was before.
Yeah, Ohio was 22.
It was enshrined in
Missouri,
like 10 states, wasn't
Missouri
it?
was 24, right?
Missouri had it.
Yeah, but they're not a swing state.
They're not.
They're
But
deep
it
red.
passed in Missouri. It passed in...
It's passed in every state
It
except
always
for...
I think one.
Except for Florida, where
Yeah,
it
Florida.
did technically... I mean, it got the majority.
Yeah, Florida just changed the rules. DeSantis
Well, they need
changed the rules.
60%, right?
Yeah.
That is completely fucked that they did that.
Well, they do that for marijuana. There's a lot of laws here like that as well, where if you don't get to 60%, it's like, well, fuck off.
Well,
California's like that too.
Texas doesn't even have ballot measures.
Yeah, Texas
Thank
doesn't.
God.
At all?
No, at all.
Interesting.
No. Otherwise, it would be pretty fucking funny, to be honest.
Yeah.
So we would all be riding around on horseback with fucking machine guns mounted to the horse's head.
Man, can I super glue a machine gun to my horse's head?
True.
So
Fuck yeah.
it passed,
I mean, it sounds great to me.
It passed in Arizona and Missouri.
Do you know what? Well, forget about Missouri. Let's focus on Arizona then. What was the separation in that and Trump vote? Because Trump won, 51% in Arizona, I think?
It passed by 61%. 61.6 is what the vote.
So it was a non-factor in every sense of the word.
Yes.
Okay.
It also passed in...
Because that even outperformed Gallego. I think Gallego only got 56, right? The Democratic senator that won there against Curley?
Outperformed Gallego.
Yeah.
It passed in Nevada as well.
I don't think Nevada was ever a swing state, in my opinion.
I think it was blue in 2020.
It was in 2020, but that was that election was obviously stolen. right? I think we can all agree on that now. Because like in 2022, the deep red Clark County sheriff won the governorship from a pretty popular, allegedly popular Democratic governor there.
Yeah.
I mean, he whipped his ass. So I don't think it was ever in play.
And what was the vote difference? Like 10 million from the last election?
Give or take, yeah.
Yeah, for Democrats. And you're like, where did those votes go? Or do they just hate her that much?
That's also
Could be possible. I mean,
that's the one that I can't figure out.
I mean,
That's what they
people.
say.
There have been elections in the past where people just don't come out.
And that's what they said, like in cities like New York, where you know they're like, oh, it turned very red, but a lot of it was just people not coming out who normally vote.
You know what the funny thing about that is, in my opinion, that is a tacit vote for Trump.
Yeah, it
people
is.
know that he's going to win, and they decide to sit out anyways. That's a vote for Trump.
She got more votes in Georgia than Joe Biden did.
Oh, that's funny.
Really?
Yep.
That's interesting.
What's going on in the back there with Gary's mom?
Gary's mom's walking around there. Look, Gare Bear is enjoying his life back there.
I don't think he
and
should
we'll
be.
let them. Something else that was super interesting in one of the videos you posted was talking about transgender. And then you had people come on the show and talk about
Detransitioners, yeah. Chloe and others.
And you said
Yeah.
that was a big part of changing your mind as well.
Yeah, I mean, you don't fuck with kids like that.
That seemed like a universal rule up until relatively recently.
Yeah, and talking to these they're so young and just being led astray, and even having like Paula Scanlon, who was in the locker room with Leah Thomas.
Mm-hmm.
Even hearing her story, how much they gaslit her, how much the one thing that just struck me was we just kept thinking the adults would make it, like, surely the adults won't allow this to happen, as it was continuously happening. So I think the adults needed to like take control again. I'm like, you can't have teen girls not participating in sports because they're the ones who have to boycott playing against a biological male. You're putting that on teen girls. You're telling teen girls that they shouldn't listen to their inherent gut instinct and fear, and that they should just be okay with men in all of their spaces, even if they get uncomfortable by that. Like, I grew up with The Gift of Fear. That book was huge when I was growing up, and it was all about like, if you feel unsafe, you run. As a woman, women are the only
That's
animal.
Gavin DeBecker. He started like the first legit bodyguard. I worked with his people a lot. They actually do all of Elon security, or they did. I don't know
Oh,
if
no
they still
shit.
do, yeah. Gavin DeBecker, he's like one of the premier authorities on close personal protection, just for context.
Yeah, and he had this great book that we kind of all read, and Oprah did a whole thing on it, and had him on twice. And it was all about just honoring that gut instinct. We're the only animal that will get into a metal box with a guy that might skeeve us out because we don't want to hurt his feelings. If he gets on and we feel scared, we won't just get off. We'll just stay there in a sealed metal box with somebody.
Yeah.
And it's like most animals would run when they feel that fear, and we are conditioned not to. And to be conditioning an entire generation of women, it is infuriating to me. Like this is, it's one of it is a hill I'll die on. You know, I'm with J.K. Rowling on this. Like,
Yeah.
You cannot be telling women to ignore that. That is in our DNA for so long for a reason. And now you're like, oh, I might be transphobic or racist or whatever shit is in your brain overriding that gut instinct that is there to keep you safe. Like, fuck that.
Yeah.
That was a big part of it.
I
Just
know.
fuck that.
When I was watching your videos, like, I think the reason why it resonated so much with a lot of people is the way you explained it. I mean, very similar to what you're doing now, and it was just very common sense across the board. That I think a lot of people related to it versus like, oh, you're a fucking transphobe and you hate the and blah blah blah, and I think that's why that video just went ballistic everywhere. So,
and I wasn't necessarily endorsing him. I was just explaining my reasons for why I was voting for him, which it was a protest vote in many ways. And the other thing that I said in that video that really seemed to resonate with people is as someone who's been online for 10 years now or whatever it is in the culture wars, when I'm using doublespeak, when we're saying unalive ourselves, when we're saying all these creepy Orwellian words and tiptoeing around like the jib jab or whatever, like things so we don't trip these censors, that's all coming from the left. That's not coming from the right yet.
And
Yeah.
we're
And you hope it doesn't.
We got lucky enough to be for them to try this shit in the generation that read these books in fucking high school. You know what I mean? Like if this had been an even slower frog boiling situation that happened 50 years from today, and people were even more comfortable than they are now, they may not have woken up. The COVID thing may not have woken them up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think we got fortunate there, or maybe that's just the way things happen.
I do think it's a delayed COVID thing too, because that was why I for sure thought people would punish their governments for the overreach of COVID and in 2022. And I forget that people don't really vote in midterms. And it was right on the heels of Roe v. Wade. They had a lot of that momentum being overturned at Dobbs. And then I think people were just like in the weeds, like getting their, in 2021, we were still pretty locked. I had my child in 2022 in Los Angeles, and we were still wearing masks in the hospital during child labor.
Yeah.
Like 2022. And so I think it wasn't really until 2023, 2024 that people were able to be like, okay, what the fuck is going on?
Well, if memory serves me correct, I think in LA, they didn't even get rid of masks until like May of 2023. It was super fucking late.
It was
and I was
nuts.
like,
Yeah, but
shit.
the broader country though, there were a couple of hiccups that showed that people were starting to wake up, right? The Governance Disinformation Board ran from early or late spring 22 to August of 22, right? Nobody knew about it until May, and then it kind of lingered around, and people found out what they were trying to do. Like, you're not creating a ministry of truth in this country. Fuck you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They were like, no, and they shut that shit down, and that's the real misstep, I think, of these people. And I don't think it's a left or right thing. I think it's just people in general that are trying to control things. I don't think you can map liberalism onto it. I don't think it matches, right? Certainly doesn't match classical liberalism, which is defined by freedom of speech, mostly, right?
Yeah.
But that's the power of information, and it's the power of collectively saying no to things. That's the most powerful you as a group will ever be, is all saying no together to some stupid bullshit, right? Which is why, despite my many criticisms of Elon Musk, we are in his debt for buying Twitter.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I said that after the election, and I'm not any stan of his, but I was like, thank God, because he allowed the population to see other people agree boys and girls are different. You couldn't say that.
You use the phrase a lot, give permission, right? Like there's something about societal pressure where when you see some other people doing something, it's like, oh, okay, that's culturally acceptable to do, which, by the way, is an important thing. We should exercise that more, and maybe we wouldn't have little boys in elementary school classrooms meowing and shitting in a fucking litter box, right?
But I do think
or men pretending to be women and all this stuff. What? How do you think you're benefiting that person to indulge their delusion?
Yeah.
That is fucked. We would never do that with anybody else. Like if your kid all of a sudden started talking about his imaginary friend or something like that, but he's 18 years old, and you're like, all right, it's time for some pills, buddy.
Yeah.
Like you get that shit ends at fucking 9.
It's going to be a 5150 at that point, and I got to put you in a cycle.
But if you were a parent and your fucking adult child is like, oh, I've got this imaginary friend, you wouldn't sit there and have a goddamn conversation with the imaginary friend and pretend it's all okay. You would be derelict in your duties as a human being, and also as a parent to even think that way. But somehow we've normalized the idea of indulging people in their delusions for some fucking weird reason. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, I think it is this idea too of, I think it's called like preference falsification, where, and this happens a lot in communism, where you think that you are siloed. We were all siloed by these social media companies before Elon kind of broke the dam. And then you all are like, this is what I was saying afterwards. I was seeing the numbers. I'm like, oh, thank God. You don't all think men can get pregnant? Okay. I was worried. Like, there was a sense, even seeing my numbers, like, am I getting throttled? You start feeling crazy.
Yeah.
And you're like, people are like, this show should be huge, dumpster fire. And it's just like in the backwaters. I'm like, maybe only 60,000 people still think men can't get pregnant.
Yeah. And we have the same thing.
maybe
Well, we were
that's
lucky to have
just
a
the
large.
case.
We were lucky to have a pre-culture war audio audience. So
Right.
a couple 100,000 people will listen to what we do. But putting it on video on any platform, it immediately gets nuked or throttled.
Right.
No
Twitter's
matter what it
doing
is.
well, but for YouTube, you're lucky
Yeah,
to get
for
like
years.
10,000 views.
Right.
And it's even yesterday's show, we talked about the people that Trump were nominating for the cabinet and all that other stuff. There's an election warning underneath our video on YouTube that
I think
says,
they're on all mine.
for more information,
Yeah.
go to the AP about
Yes,
the election
there's on
results. It
mine.
was like, we know the election results. I'm all good. I don't need this. And I'm
Yeah.
like, and they were like, oh, would you care to send feedback on this? And I was like, yes.
Yeah.
The election's over. It's been over for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Like, we found out that night. I don't need this underneath here. And all the other two, like the other side of this is I voted for the guy. Like I'm good. You know?
Right.
So you're not telling me that it was stolen or whatever.
It's all about. I mean, remind me of the phrase you use, but I would call it manufacturing consent, right? That's
It's called preference falsification. I forget where I
falsification.
heard about
I'll have
this,
to
but
look
it was
that up.
something that really resonated with me. Just like you start believing that these preferences are also true of everyone else because nobody can speak truthfully about what their preferences are.
Yeah, I think that's probably part of manufacturing consent, right?
Yeah.
It's like multi-tiered across the media, the government, and then also censorship to, I guess, tailor what the acceptable versions of a narrative are and then exclude the rest through whatever means. It's been going on for, I mean, it is from Marxism, essentially, right?
Right.
And it's because that's how you know, by the way, that it's a stupid fucking idea. Forget about the times that Marxism has been tried. Anytime, and this is like, you can see this from childhood, by the way. If something doesn't make sense to us, our brains tend to reject it. A kid smells peas and like, nah, man.
I don't want that. Yeah.
I don't want that shit, even though it's good for you, right? But my senses at the time are only mature enough to determine whether it smells good or not whether it's healthy or not. So it doesn't make sense to my brain, so I say no and spit it on the fucking floor. That's what we do with dumb information as adults. And
Somewhat.
Somewhat, yeah.
But somewhat if we are conditioned properly, right? If we're taught how and not what to think. But when, big government daddy comes in and like, oh, here comes the airplane, and it crashes right into the World Trade Center. And somehow Building 7 blows up across the street, that doesn't make any fucking sense. You know what I mean? So.
Did you see that meme that was going around? And it was like me when I go back into the future and I to stop the pilots from flying into the towers, and it's two people holding hands and the towers are still falling. It's the funniest meme.
I mean, it would be like the last scene of Fight Club where they're holding
That's the
hands
scene,
watching.
yeah.
That would be that's a
That's
perfect
the
meme.
meme. It's
Yeah,
a
I like
meme
that.
I
I
saw
haven't
the
seen
other
that, but
day.
that's awesome.
It's
Yeah.
hilarious.
I would love that.
And then back to the COVID thing coming out of it, because we moved here in 2020. They
when
brought
I
all
wanted to move
the
here.
biggest shows here. Well, when we came, because my wife was already fed up with the lockdowns and all that
Where
other
were you
shit.
guys?
North Carolina.
Yeah, and
North
then
Carolina,
We had,
really?
we had a Democratic.
Roy Cooper is an
Yeah.
absolute shitbag governor. He's still a shitbag. He fucked
He's
up
out
the whole
now.
FEMA thing. Yeah, he fucked it up.
So that happened, and so when we got here, it was like, oh, all right. But if you go to Austin, downtown, which is super blue, you would wear mask up and everything else.
Yeah.
There was a toy store I took my kids to. And then we came out to the suburbs out
Yeah.
here, and it was like freedom. There was
Yeah.
no anything.
20 miles. That
Yeah.
was the difference.
That was it. 20 miles was the difference. And I think for comedy in particular, and Joe Rogan and all those other guys, the reason why this city worked at the time and is flourishing now, especially for comedy, is all the comedians that were coming out to do podcasts and being here, they would walk in with masks. We would see them walk through the doors, and then they would see this shit. And then our old producer was blowing fucking weed everywhere and all this other shit. And they were like, oh, fuck, you guys don't give a shit about this. And that we're like, yeah, man, are you wearing a fucking mask? And they
Yeah.
were like, yeah, but I mean, I just came from LA and I don't know what's acceptable. And I was like, none of it is here. And it
No.
was such a like, they were all shell shocked of like, holy shit, what's going on down here? And it was just like life.
Well,
Yeah.
that's
Life
why,
is going on.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's why somebody that's pushing an idea that doesn't make sense has to censor anybody that comes after that bad idea, right?
Yeah, it's the only way.
Just a little bit of exposure of how stupid it is will blow the whole fucking thing up. It's like a piece of a grain of sand in a little fucking engine or something. It just fucks the whole machine up.
What I came here in 2020 to do Joe's show after he moved. I would have moved then. It's a long story why I couldn't, but basically my husband had to get his licensing hours in California finished before we could move, and then I got pregnant. And then we came again in 2021, and we drove in 2020, we drove here and drove through Arizona. The bars were open and drove through. It was probably July of 2020.
Yeah.
And so it's still pretty early.
I don't think.
yeah.
I don't think Arizona, like even compared to Florida, I don't think Arizona ever closed down.
No.
Like
And then
Florida did for what, 6 weeks or something like that,
Arizona
or 4
was
weeks.
literally like 2 weeks and then back
Yeah,
open
yeah.
because we were there in July and I was like, this is crazy. And then we came here, it was open and pretty normal and drove around and we were looking for places. And then I would go back to LA and be like, we don't have to live like this, right? Like there's people out there and they're alive. Like you feel like you're going back into a bunker, you know? And,
Yeah, did it feel like a movie?
but
Because it's like the Truman Show.
Yeah, like you're in a bunker and they told you there was like a nuclear fallout and then you leave and everybody's just like tra la 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 la.
Yeah.
Well, how did it feel to be?
Bunker.
How did it feel to go out of the bubble, be exposed to that shit, and then come back, and then the media is telling you that you're selfish for this,
Yeah.
or you're unpatriotic for this, or it was a bifurcated gaslighting. So they said you get the vaccine and it stops here, and then they said if you don't, then you're anti-American. You're literally killing people, right? Like somebody who's been exposed to the reality of that situation, coming back into that bubble, that's got to be kind of shitty. I couldn't have done that. I would have lost my fucking mind.
Well, we were still like, my husband and I were working class too. So he was working at a Trader Joe's through the whole pandemic. So we never like locked down. You know, I say this all the time. I would see people go on shows like Mar and, you know, they're like, oh, we're so over this in like 2021 or 22. It's like, people have been working the whole fucking time, right?
Yeah.
Like they never stopped working. The working class, they were doing your lawns and delivering your food. And like there's a whole and I do think that's why the working class shifted so much in this election as well.
I do too.
Because I wrote this piece about lectures from limousine liberals, and that was like, there were so many things that broke my brain. 2020, watching people die alone, telling everybody they were, unpatriotic, going after people for protesting the kind of ordinances that were overreach, and then being like, have a good time partying in the streets during your George Floyd protests and burning down all these cities. I was like, fuck that. Okay, fuck this. Like racism is the real virus. You guys are out of your minds. I think that broke a lot of people's brains, and the fallout from that then when the vaccines were put in place and they were trying to mandate it, and you have the working class heroes, the people on the front lines, you have this sign out in front, and now you're shaming them for not wanting to get the vaccine and allowing the government to fire them. You guys are out of your fucking mind. Like it was too much. It was just too, and I clearly was not alone in feeling that way.
But there's still a lot of people who lean on that old stuff, right? The progressive folk still try to rationalize it, and there's some of the other analogs to it, which is the way that we've completely made feminism irrational at this point, right?
Yeah.
Where it's so far crazy that it's like prioritizing men over women now. What the fuck, right? So how do
patriarchy's so crafty.
So how do you there were some natural off ramps for people that you're describing right now for the COVID stuff. I think one of the big jobs for not just conservatives or Republicans, but for reasonable people right now, is to try to provide an off-ramp to bring some of these people back, not to your political side, but just to fucking reality so we can talk again. Like, I don't know what that looks like, though, to be honest. Like, I don't know how you talk to the mom in Minnesota and Minneapolis suburbs who's voted Democrat her whole life, who thinks that she has to because of reproductive rights, who doesn't understand how the goddamn Constitution works or any of that stuff, obviously, but like that person that got, and it's that I'm just picking one issue out of thin air, but all the stuff that people have been programmed incorrectly to believe that are getting in the way of real discourse and debate. I don't know how you drag that person back into a normal life at this point.
I think, too, Helen Joyce came on my podcast on Walk-Ins Welcome, the other one, and she made a really good point that stuck with me, that particularly around the gender stuff, you almost always find somebody who has, when you see someone who's pushing this, or there's an organization that's really behind it and you can't figure it out, and then you're like, oh, and they have a trans kid, and you're like, and there it is. But she was like, they cannot face that they might have made an irreversible mistake with their child, and their only option is to double down.
Yep.
And so, because to face that you may have sterilized your child out of some sense of being, empathetic or whatever, even if it's just like you want to have this cool, trendy trans kid, whatever the reason is that you did it, it's hard for a parent to accept that they've damaged their child in any, like, you know how it is. Like, when a kid gets hurt on your watch, you're like, oh God, that was on me. It like haunts me.
I get 3, and and you're like, God, I saw the table.
I know.
I saw them jump, and I was right there, and I just missed it.
It happened
but you know
the other
what?
day.
They saw the table.
Yes and no, where it's just
No,
like,
that's just how I
God.
feel when my kids eat shit.
Oh, do you?
Like, you got
yeah.
eyeballs. Fuck you.
Yeah,
I'm
he
like-
pushes his kids into the table.
Well, and that's fine.
And now you know.
It's when it's an accident that hurts the most,
Yeah,
right? When you do it
and-
on purpose, it's like, all right, cool. When it's an accident, we were like, God damn it. And
I do think in some instances with these parents, they have been deluded by people who should not be giving them, like telling a parent who's in distress with their kid who's been brainwashed by TikTok or wherever they got all this nonsense, or their activist teachers who are coming from NGOs into these schools, that the only way that their kid won't kill themselves, it is emotional blackmail. And then you make these decisions because you have therapists who can't say any different or they'll lose their license in some states. They have to affirm this nonsense. And now you make these decisions. So I try to be compassionate to the parents too, because they're desperate. A good friend of mine is Abigail Schreier, who wrote the book Irreversible Damage. And her inbox it's all parents in desperation not knowing what to do about this situation. And I'm hoping in the next 4 years we can push back against this and give parents alternate pathways other than, like, I'm all for banning gender-affirming care for children.
Yeah.
Get rid of that shit, because it is not informed consent. Like you said, there's no.
and the children have no idea.
The kids have no idea. We don't let them get tattoos, and you're telling me that this is fine? It is criminal.
Yeah.
It is criminal.
And I've said this on the show before, but we had a principal who came in who was a listener from Dallas, because we leave the doors open. When he walked in, you're like, oh shit, you guys just leave the doors open. I was like,
It's cool.
Yeah, well, the way we look at it is like, because we own these buildings, like our audience built this place. They might as well come in and booze for free and just hang out. And it's like, hey, dude, we're doing shows. Come on in.
That's really cool.
And with that, one of them was a female principal from Dallas. And we asked her about this. I was like, hey, do you get this from parents and everything else? And she goes, I do. And the parents come in, and she goes, I can tell you 99% of the time, it's because there is a problem going on at home. And then the kid is trying to get their attention by
Right.
saying, I'm trans or this or blah, 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 because of some issue that is going on with the family,
Right.
not necessarily them. And then the parents have to placate to them. And that's how all this shit escalates. So.
Right. And
yeah.
then you have therapists and people kind of acknowledging it. I actually think this is the same thing in falling out around Trump. It's like in families, you're like, this is just a proxy war for like old bullshit that's coming up in the family. Like the falling out isn't about Trump. It's because you guys have some history, and then you start fighting about this, and then it's like, and then remember the time that this happened. And I think it's like old dysfunction that exists. It's not just like clearly
It's an effigy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. A lot of it is institutional and infrastructure based, though, right? So back to COVID and vaccines. This isn't just about the COVID vaccines, it's about all vaccines. Pediatricians will get bumped out of their insurance networks if they don't maintain a certain percentage of vaccinated kids. So if less than 85% of your patients, some for Blue Cross Blue Shield, I think it's 63%. But for some of the private health insurance companies that aren't on public health care and shit like that, it's 85%. So if less than 85% of your patients aren't completely 72 scheduled vaccinations on time, then you get kicked out of network for that.
Wow, that's
and that's
nuts.
why, like, I have a lot of friends who have young kids now from 0 to 4 years old who don't want to do any of that bullshit, and they can't find a pediatrician.
Yep.
Oh, they exist in Texas.
In
though.
Texas, it's
Texas,
fine.
yes.
Right?
Like, most shit's here is fine.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
like in North Carolina,
Can't go
it's
against
a problem.
Jesus.
I have friends in North
My
Carolina with
friend
young kids,
has
and they've
one
had a
in
problem.
North Carolina.
Yeah.
I can help
They
you out.
certainly exist, but the thing that I hear is that we end up driving 45 minutes out of the city,
Yeah,
which is like kind of hectic and for some people
yeah.
not possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then women have the same thing with abortion of like, hey, I've got to drive out of the state of Texas and all that other
And then
shit,
you have
so.
the people in the media. I think The View, somebody on The View was like, yeah, you should. Or no, it wasn't The View. It was on MSNBC. Like this black lady. Yeah, you should disown your fucking family for this. How dare they? And I guess that's the
Joy
reasonable.
Reid?
Well, she was one of them. Yeah,
Okay.
she's a fucking mongoloid. But like that is the appropriate response if you believe that's Hitler.
Right. Right. Logically, that's consistent, actually.
And
Yeah.
you know, staying
Yeah.
at home and putting a mask on and fucking spraying yourself with hand sanitizer all day is probably the appropriate response if you think that COVID is a deadly virus for everybody. But when you see the governor of California at the fucking French Laundry, you know it's not true. And when I see Joe Biden smiling like he just won the lottery when Trump walks into the Oval Office, I know it's not true.
Right.
And so does everybody else. Whether you admit to yourself you know it's not true or not, you know it's not.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
And I think that becomes a real problem because cognitive dissonance does severe damage to the reason centers in your brain. Like you stop being able to tell what's real or not.
And for you, I guess now that it's over, how do you repair relationships with friends who are still on the left, who were pissed off, that maybe you've been friends with for years and things like that? Or do you think that they'll never be friends with you again just because of the decision you
They
made?
might never. I mean, that was one of the things that sadly kind of drove me out of comedy for a little while was as I was getting caught in the crossfire of all of this in 2015, I was joking about things online and I was losing friends in comedy, real life friends who were good friends, and they were unfollowing me, blocking me, and it was very upsetting. And I didn't really know, you know, what I know now and how to handle it. And I got very uncomfortable going around those people and being in that, because it's like, I'm going to see you in real life. You know
Yeah,
that, right?
yeah.
And so I felt very rejected. And that was one of the things that I think over the years I had to really reconcile and be aware of in myself is, am I reacting to rejection? Like, I think it's very easy. This is, you know, Michael Malice always says you take one red pill, you don't take the whole bottle. But I think when you see these instances of people who go from being rejected for one of their beliefs that might be like against the approved narrative to QAnon supporters in Dallas, it is reacting to like that increased rejection. And rejection is powerful. So it was, I really had to like do a lot of work around just allowing them to have that response and being okay with it. And it was scary at first, and then I found a whole new group of friends. And I think people need to know that they'll be okay. Because when you're in that in-between and you're, you know, for lack of a better word, tribe is kicking you out or rejecting you, it is intentionally scary. Again, it's in our DNA to not be okay with that. And then you will realize that there are other people who are like-minded. It opens you up. Cognitive dissonance, like you were saying, one of the reasons I not had to vote for Trump. I know a lot of people who could not reconcile voting for him but wanting Kamala to lose. But for me, it felt there was cognitive dissonance for me there where it's like, I want him to win, but I can't vote for him. I understand how people can reconcile that, but I personally just couldn't. It was creating some kind of, it was too conflicting in my mind. And I think a part of me was okay with voting for him, and that was the part that I was not looking at. And I don't know. I mean, my family, I have families who are very left MSNBC watchers, and we've had a lot of conversations, and they're like, I'm never watching MSNBC ever again because they feel led astray by those networks, which is interesting, and you're seeing that in their collapse.
Well, they're gone. Yeah,
Yeah,
they're now
like-
Spinco as of
Yeah.
yesterday. It's going to be an app called Spinco.
Oh, weird.
Yeah.
So I think like you lose some people, and I grew up in a very huge Irish Catholic family. My dad's one of 10, and it was always like where blood is thicker than all this other stuff. So you can have and we had communists in our family and Republicans, and there was the whole gamut, and everybody would get wasted and they'd all fight, and sometimes the cops would come, but we all loved each other at the end of it. And that was just that was the way I was raised by my greatest generation grandparents, And so I'm lucky that I have that foundation and that my family ultimately does. We might not be, some of us might not be as close, but at the end of the day, we're all still there for each other, you know, and still love one another.
Yeah,
So,
what an odd time that we've reorganized our collective morality to make it okay to abandon your literal family.
yeah, no,
right?
that's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, what evolutionary point could that possibly serve? You know what I mean?
And that is like communism, no?
Yeah,
I mean,
it is. It's like that. There's no evolutionary benefit to that whatsoever. All that does, like, I mean, we say the phrase divide and conquer because if somebody's trying to conquer you, they will try to divide you first, typically, right? This is, it's social suicide in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense that we're doing it right now, and it's almost, I think, like a virus. I believe it is. I think it's the most dangerous virus on the planet right now. This idea that how we've reorganized what it means to be good. You know, we use the phrase on the right side of history now. Shut the fuck up. Just go do your laundry and shut the fuck up.
Clean your room.
What a stupid fucking thing to say. I want to be on the right side of history. And, you know, to moralize every single argument.
But you also don't know.
Yeah, we don't
You don't know.
know.
You don't know.
You don't know. You make a decision, you hope it works, but you don't fucking know at the end of the
No.
day. And hey, we'll figure it out together,
Yeah.
but at least we're together. And then some people aren't.
Well, there's nothing more dangerous than somebody who doesn't know shit and thinks they do, right? Especially when they rise to a position of power, because then they empower all the other midwits to do the same.
And that's why I tell people how dumb I
I love
am
that
every
word.
single day. That way, if I say something smart, everybody's like, God damn it, way to go, Ross. But my biggest disappointment is like comedians and podcasters that I was a huge fan of, and they've just written horrific shit about Trump and their supporters and everything else. And I'm like, God damn it. How do I go back and listen to them knowing what I know now? And then these horrific statements and posts they've put out where I'm like, fuck, Mark Maron's one of them for me.
I wonder if
I love Mark Maron's podcast. It was one of my first that I listened to. Interviewed celebrities. It was in his garage. It was
Obama.
a fucking blast. Yeah. And then he posted this thing maybe 2 weeks ago about fascists and podcasters and fuck all these people for coming out and having them on their platforms and everything else. And I was just like, really? Like, you were the first one of them that I listened to, that you were the first guy to bring somebody into your garage and just have a fucking conversation.
Yeah.
And that sucks. And I'm like, shit, I don't know how I go back now where you've already seen behind the curtain. It's like an actor when you go to a movie and you know that, they've done something fucked up and horrific, and then you can't believe in the character anymore.
Yeah. Do you think this is a symptom of social media in general? And what I mean by that is that we told a bunch of fucking people that don't matter that their opinion matters. And I don't mean to be a dick, right?
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, there's whether we believe in caste systems institutionally or not, they develop on their own.
Yeah,
there's
they
always a fucking pecking order, no matter what fucking jail, fucking a
rehab.
sports team, your social group, the
Yep.
country. It always happens. There's always a pecking order, right? And
middle school.
people need leaders, and it is upon leaders to educate themselves in the right way, right? And that's why aristocracy has been a leader throughout all of human history, is because they have the resources to do these things that common folk don't, right? So now we're in a situation where not only do common folk have access to all the same information as everybody, and I don't use common folk in a pejorative way. I'm a fucking common folk. I grew up in a goddamn trailer park. They have now access to all this information for some amount of time, and then all of a sudden they've got a broadcast network where they could tell everybody how they feel about everything. And for some reason that turned into not just like being able to share your opinion, but you're forced into these situations where you are required to have hard opinions on things that you have no idea what the fuck you're talking about, and it doesn't even fucking matter to you. You couldn't care less about the issue. And then you're broadcasting it everywhere. So the social currency went from being socially acceptable to everybody else to just speaking my truth all the time, which is to say paraphrasing complex ideas in a fucking inane, retarded way, and then thinking that you're smart for doing so. And you get that social reward because there's enough dipshits on the internet like, oh, that's a fucking blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And these people, like Nick Fuentes, there's enough people, there's enough Sigma male faggots out there, right? that oh, fucking society's not fair. No, you just have low testosterone. Go get a shot and eat a steak, fuckface, and you'll be fine, right? But they're nihilists who fucking escape from reality, and they find that there's always some group to hate or another. There's some reason. There's some boogeyman aside. Like, it can't be me.
Yeah.
It can't be me. Look at how many people liked my social media post. It can't be me.
Yeah.
Now it's you, Nick. It's you.
It is. And back to
And I feel sorry for him. Like, just take the shot, eat the steak, go shoot the guns at the range, and you'll be happy.
We should be telling him to shoot guns.
No, he'll be fine.
Yeah, I don't think he'll be fine.
You got to do him in that.
He'll be fine.
You got to do him in that order. You elevate your testosterone, eat some meat, and you'll be fine.
Back to your woman in the box thing about it letting the man and everything else, because you've had a dude next to you holding a knife the entire show, and that's true. You never got out of the box, so I want to commend you for that. Like, yeah, you didn't get out of the fucking box.
No, I feel safe.
I interviewed her earlier, and I had a gun pointed at the whole time.
Oh, you did? Good.
So
Good.
I know my place.
Yeah.
I know not to get out of the box.
Now, what have your husband? What have you guys done now?
What have we done?
Yeah, did you move? Did you?
We live here.
Okay, you're here now.
We've
You want
here.
their address?
Yeah, I do.
I thought you already had it.
I lost the.
It's nice
it was
for
a
you
red
to
light.
pretend you don't know where I live.
It was a red light, and I couldn't get there. But
this is cute.
Yeah.
He's old enough to have MapQuest directions to it now.
Well,
they're printed out. They're
Stop right
printed
there.
out. Yeah,
I'm
true.
33 years old. I'm a very tender teen, but no. Did you guys
we're
move
here.
from LA and you're here now?
We came.
Yeah, was there a pit stop on the way, or did you go directly?
No,
here?
we came here. It was April of 2023. So we got here. My daughter turned 1 the day the truck got here because I was like, I do not want to be in LA. I want to get her out.
Yeah.
That was the same thing he did. He moved to North Carolina, though. What was it?
Yep.
Fucking
2015.
15,
15. Like when the Trump thing started heating up.
Where were you?
I was in Los Angeles for 15, 16 years. And it was one of
Where are
those
you
things, originally Georgia.
Okay.
But I moved like everywhere. I went to
Yeah,
Ohio
that's
State
like
and then
it.
NYU for
Yeah.
grad, and then I moved to LA afterwards, and then doing movies and all that other stuff, and then writing comedies forever. And 14, 15 was when it started drying up, comedy
Yeah.
in particular. So,
Especially if you're a white man.
oh, dude,
You're out.
That's the conversation that I have with my friends who are still there every day, and I'm like, dude, you gotta get out. And
Well,
figure something else out.
you don't identify as white, though, right?
No, I don't.
You're a petite Asian lady. If I'm not mistaken.
on the inside, I am.
Can you play the music, please?
Yeah, can we hit that? Thank you. Whenever you hear the Asian music like that, it always follows up with Pooyah! Just to let people know that I'm not racist.
Okay.
But I saw the writing on the wall,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh shit! Like rewrites had started coming in comedy-wise.
Yeah.
They started making less comedy TV shows,
Yeah.
less comedy movies, all that other shit.
And then
I
they
was
started
like,
trying to make them again, and god damn, it sucked.
And now it's funny. I was just talking to my friend Brian, and he was in town, and he's like, it's like Detroit.
yeah.
Like he's like the industry is gone, and everyone's
Gone.
like, "Hey, I'm gonna make it."
It's
He's
coming
like,
back.
It's not coming back.
It's
guys.
coming back.
No, they're building like 5 studios here.
Yep.
It's coming here.
It's
Actually.
coming here. It's going to Georgia. It's going to
Atlanta.
other
Yeah.
places. And now there's these articles about
Idaho.
these therapists out in Los Angeles who are talking to all the people in production
My God,
who used to
dude.
have jobs and now they don't know what to do with their lives anymore because they've been dolly grips or G&E department and all this other stuff. And now they had no other skill in life. And they're trying to figure out what to do, and these therapists are making crazy amounts of money in LA.
That's crazy.
It's nuts.
Like
dude.
those people like that are willing to work that hard for that amount of hours. There's always a job for you.
Yeah,
brother.
just
That's
go-
what I say.
Always a fucking. It
That's
doesn't
what I
matter.
say.
It might be something else, but there's always a job for that motherfucker.
Yeah, especially
That's the
those
person
guys.
that built this country.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And now
get
with,
out of there.
Now with comedy, there's been a shift, and we're starting to see it now with let's take Netflix for example. Tim Dillon had a weird fucking special where he was kind of
Like-
Jerry Springer-like character.
Yeah.
Our buddy Adam Ray just dropped one the other night where he was Dr. Phil,
Yeah.
and you're starting to see these weird comedies start to come back
Shane
like it
Gillis.
used to be. Shane Gillis and Tires and all this other stuff. We've got this show Street Gonzo, which is completely out of fucking control, and we've got a meeting with them at the end of the month in
nice.
of January. But it's like you're starting to see a shift and it come back. However, It's not in LA.
Yeah.
Like none of that shit was in
because
LA.
the best thing you can do now is produce your own stuff and license it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And because the numbers just aren't there. None of these networks, and like look at they're all in huge debt. They can't make anything. You go there and it's like a ghost town on all of these studios. It's terrifying.
Yeah, and it's another reason, another group of people that we should be thankful for during this transition who were, I don't think they meant to be, like I think Elon was trying to lead. I don't think Dave Chappelle and Joe Rogan were trying to lead. I think they just found it interesting, and Dave didn't give it. Like, Dave, you can't cancel Dave Chappelle. Fuck off, dude. You know what I mean? It's like people like that continued saying fucked up shit in a funny way during that period were super important because it could go away.
Yeah,
right?
and it's like, the same with us.
On movies, it went away.
It went away.
There's no more Pineapple Expresses or Tropic Thunders coming, buddy. It's over.
Nope.
Right? And it could have gone away for stand-up as well, very easily.
Oh,
but a couple of people just decided to move to Austin and tell everybody to go fuck themselves.
People are like, you could say retard again. I'm like, some of us never stopped.
Yeah, I know. We didn't stop. We didn't stop
held
here.
the line.
We did. And like we've been top 40 in the world for 9 consecutive years without any help from YouTube or any marketing or anything else. Dan and I don't have huge social media accounts.
Yeah.
I think I've got fucking, I don't know, 50,000 followers on Twitter or whatever it is. And it's like, it is possible just to keep saying fucked up shit. We just never stopped after, 9 years, and it keeps going on today.
This is the prophecy of Andrew Breitbart. Like, this is the culture shift that occurred. If you probably studied the top 10 podcasts of the past, even the number one Joe Rogan experience, if you study this and look, you will see culturally that there was a huge market, Kill Tony, of people who are like, okay, well, you guys can all go crazy over there with your nonsense, weird language and your like weird Jaguar commercial and but I mean, I really think one of the moments that tipped everything was the Bud Light moment. I think that when you saw the reaction to that, I was like, oh, people haven't all lost their minds.
Yeah.
Like, we're not alone.
Everybody kind of rallied around this one thing, and it fucked
like,
over an entire
company. American brand.
It's like the fucking obnoxious guy at the party. You try your best to ignore that motherfucker.
Like he's playing guitar, and you're like, shut the fuck up.
Until he like gets sloppy drunk and bumps into you and spills your drink on you for the last time, and then you're like, God damn it! Because even at that moment, where you are offended as offended can be, you're still like, man, I don't want to fucking do this.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to deal with this shit. I just wanted to watch something goofy on television after my 12-hour fucking shift in the coal mines before I go to sleep.
Yeah, you're like, and
without
then
somebody
Jimmy
telling me
Kimmel crying.
but without
like,
somebody telling me I'm a bad person for it.
Exactly.
Like, fuck you, man.
Yeah.
And that's another Breitbart thing. Like, you're going to come up here and say that we're racist and all this shit. Fuck you.
Well, and it's the people who like build America and keep it going. Like the blue collar workers, the working class. I remember a family member called me after 2016, and he was like, "You out marching, Bridge?" And I was like, "No, I'm not out marching, believe it or not." And he was
marching
like,
for what?
Well, because of the pussy hat thing. He was
he's
like, "Oh, I thought you'd be out marching." He was just giving me shit, and I was like, "No, I don't. I'm not going to be marching." And I was like, "Don't you think you and your boys would be out marching?" He's like, "No, because we have to go to fucking work." And it's oh, right,
exactly,
you are.
That's why conservatives don't protest.
And a dick hat wouldn't look great on us because it just would have went down our nose like a fucking gladiator helmet.
Ears and a dick.
Yeah, it would have been great.
No.
It would have been a great, it would have flopped around a lot and looked kind of funny. But
I think the Budweiser thing, the Harley Davidson thing, the Jack Daniels thing, which we got a big ass bottle of it right there.
What happened with Jack Daniels?
Same stuff, DEI stuff.
Yeah.
So
but they corrected.
Yeah, but they and John Deere was one of them.
Yeah.
They all and Robbie Starbuck, by the way, has been leading this. People send him stuff and he's like, hey, he'll reach out to the company. You've got a week to fix this, or we're fucking gonna publish all this stuff. Some of them, a lot of them, like there's been 4 or 5 that I know about that never went public because they fixed it immediately.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's the lesson, right? It's that the people that owned that company didn't believe any of that bullshit. The people that owned Bud Light didn't believe any of that stupid cisgender, whatever the fuck language bullshit.
But don't they know their audience?
No. They didn't believe any of it.
They didn't.
This next generation, the people that go into those jobs, the people that go into marketing and branding and stuff like that, are the woke dum-dums, and they let them have the job because that's the people that work there now, right?
And
that's the lesson. you have to remain ever vigilant. Ben Franklin said this 240 years ago, a republic if you can keep it. And he meant it, right? It means you have to pay the fuck attention from time to time so people don't come capture your brand. Now, Bud Light has done a good job of reversing course. They fired all those idiots.
They're still fucked, though.
They're still fucked.
Still number three.
They took too long. They tried to defend it.
Correct.
And they shouldn't have. John Deere and Jack Daniels and some of the other companies, as soon as it became... As soon as the people that were in charge actually became aware of what they were doing, like,
Jaguar, I was like, who do you think is buying your cars?
I don't know.
You went from Tom Hiddleston to what is even happening?
Well, you know, the average cost of a Jaguar is $49,500 to $75,500. It's not a luxury vehicle anymore. So you're selling to normal people. You can't. That makes that ad even worse.
Because who's your audience? And then in January, we actually have the president of Budweiser coming on this show. He was the one who quit about 6 or 7 months before the Dylan Mulvaney thing, because he kept seeing all this shit, and he went to tell the CEO.
I'm getting out.
He kept telling the CEO, he's like, "Yo, bro, this is not who we are. Like, what are we doing here?"
That was the difference.
And he jumped ship at the right fucking time, and he signed a massive book deal called The Rise and Fall of Bud Light that comes out in February with Simon & Schuster. And he's going to detail all of it in the book of like what was going on behind the scenes and why he quit right then. And
you can see
want to
the
talk
difference.
about real good luck? God damn,
It wasn't luck,
dude.
though. He did it on purpose. He's smart.
But he's smart, but you still don't know when that call's going out and everything else, so it'll be an interesting guest to have on the show.
That'll be cool.
That's the difference. As soon as these other brands, and when people fuck up, I'm going to tell them they fuck up. When they make the right decision afterwards, you don't have a right to be mad at them anymore.
Yeah.
Right? That's fucking childish bullshit.
Yeah, and let them be redeemed.
So I look at the different companies. We'll see how Jaguar responds. I don't know what their plan is right now, right?
Oh, Jaguar.
Yeah.
Well, allegedly they have something else coming on December 2nd, and they kept being like all coy in their mentions, and they're like, just stay tuned. This is the paintbrush of the beginning.
Maybe it's just graphic sex on top of a Jaguar with two straight people, and it's just like, hey, by the way, that other shit was a joke.
I think
at Jaguar we fuck hard and breathe tough.
Someone said that there might be an Apple merge, like an Apple Jaguar. This is a rumor.
That's not going
to
save them from shit.
No.
Not after
well,
that.
Apple's been trying to make a car for fucking years.
They scrapped their division to do it, so maybe they'll just buy them. What if it's they reunite Brad Pitt and fucking whatever Jennifer Aniston, and they fuck on the hood of the car?
I'm all in. I'll buy one the next day. I'll buy a fucking Jaguar the next day.
I have my favorite picture of Ben Affleck in the one of them in the
on the Ross
he's happy now. He's back to being happy now.
Dude.
He's gonna be back to being sad again, though.
No, he needs to be doing
tortured.
cocaine every day and fucking Playboy or Playmates and all that other shit. Like,
and he'll be okay.
He'll be fine.
Oh,
Ben's back. I do this thing on my Instagram where I'm like, save Ben, because every time he goes sober, I'm like, he needs to be on the fucking drugs, dude. He needs to be on hardcore. Yes.
I'm actually working. I'm working on a product now called Diet Cocaine.
Diet cocaine.
It's just cocaine.
Just cocaine, but
but you got a guy that explains that it's diet cocaine for you. So everybody's like, oh, it's diet cocaine.
Oh, he's fine. He's gonna be good. Yeah. It's the good coke.
I was making a joke that I hope RFK Jr. gets the fentanyl out of the cocaine. I'm like, we need pure drugs in America again.
One of the most
we do.
The most 2024 thing that's ever happened was Theo Von telling JD Vance.
Oh, it was the greatest.
It's a shame that we just can't do. And I shouldn't even be saying this, but it's a shame that we can't just do cocaine anymore.
No, and JD was laughing his ass off and was just like, "Yeah, man, it's but that's where we're at." And it was funny. It was a good turning point.
That might be the moment that America fell in love with
JD Vance.
I think it was. Oh, I think
my wife was the one who called me.
And I think it was the Theo interview with because they were doing the DNC, and it was the Theo interview with Trump that went viral.
Yeah,
when he was talking
about cocaine again.
Yeah. And it was like my friend and I were talking about this. Is the most interested you've ever seen Trump like in another.
He's like leaning forward,
really
and he was like very parental
more.
and shit. Yeah, it was pretty interesting, and I think it teaches a very valuable lesson that cocaine brings families together.
It does.
And I don't want to hear any more about it.
But I also think that Trump didn't have any idea what the fuck Theo was going on with Theo Von. He was just looking at him like a confused child of like, Are you okay?
Are you on cocaine right now?
Are you okay?
I
Because
think
it seems like you really love cocaine.
I feel like you're on cocaine
He was like,
right
wow.
now.
There was a couple of moments in the interview. Wow. Okay. All right.
Oh, it's so good. And that moment, like, that should have been the DNC kind of lap that they were, victory lap, was like overshadowed by this going viral, which was why that move to go on podcast was so smart of them.
Huge. And I think it'll continue, and you're going to see a lot more politicians doing it over the years.
Sorry, politicians. You're stuck with us now.
I know.
Fucking degenerates.
You're welcome, motherfucker.
Idiots with nothing more than a high school education.
That's it. And you got to come and sit and talk to us.
You got to come and press me.
The plebes.
Yeah, but you've got to go 2 or 3 layers deep on your idea now, which is good for the country.
It is.
Good. It is. Now's the point in the show we get to this thing called the Drinkin' Bro of the Week, which is someone who has inspired you or helped you become the person you are today. Who would you like to give the Drinkin' Bro of the Week to?
Oh. Gosh. Can I go last?
No.
Well, yeah, you will go last.
You're the only.
But also
I'm
first.
a woman. I feel like I should be last.
You should be walking 7 feet behind
Exactly.
me
No,
right
it's
now.
only for the guest. It's just for you. Who helped you out in comedy?
I've actually
Who helped
got
you out
one.
with Twitter?
I've got one. It was Brandon Herrera's birthday, I think Wednesday.
Okay.
So happy birthday, Brandon.
Okay, happy birthday, Brandon. Hopefully he's head of the ATF. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
I mean, honestly, I give it to Joe Rogan.
Okay.
I've been just like, for some reason, just singing his praises all week. But he really kept the Overton window open. But he's also just been such a like good friend and person, and he really inspires me to stay independent and stay on my path and just keep going, even and like not let the noise get to me, and I wouldn't truly like. Even the club is so amazing when I'm down there. It's just like he's created something really magical, and I'm grateful. I'm grateful for his existence in the world.
That's awesome. Tell the audience where they can find you.
Go to Bridget Phetasy, my YouTube page.
Spell it.
Bridget, Bridget, Phetasy, Phetasy. And go to Phetasy.com, Phetasy.com, and I'm Bridget Phetasy on social media. So,
Yeah.
But all roads lead from my YouTube page and my Phetasy.com.
Awesome. Well, look, after following you on Twitter for years, I'm happy to know that you're actually just as cool and funny in real life.
Oh,
Usually it's
thanks.
not the case. You have people on, you're just like, oh, fuck.
Yeah, yesterday he was like, man, I hope she's not a real bitch.
I was like, man, I hope this girl doesn't suck tomorrow. I mean, there was somebody else that was pitched to us, female-wise, and I said, no, Ari's going to hit you up. And I go, man, I don't know what to do with that fucking chick. But
The one
with you,
something
you
he sent me
rocked.
this morning, I said, I'll have to look into it, but I'm sure I'll say it. Usually when I say that, it means no.
Well, I'm around, so anytime someone flakes on you, just
we'd love to have you back.
give
Absolutely.
just give me a 2-hour heads up.
For sure.
She lives up there, so.
Okay. By us?
No.
Okay, gotcha.
We'll
By
talk
Tim
about
Kennedy?
it.
Kennedy? Yeah, okay.
But yeah.
Fair enough.
But anytime.
Fair,
I can
I'll
be
be
a
in-
last
I'll be in the
minute-
bushes tonight. It's
I
fine.
can be a last
Yeah.
minute fill-in.
I do have an
perfect.
800 millimeter lens with a 2x teleconverter over there, which means I can take your picture from a mile.
That
Oh,
is true.
sweet.
Yeah, we use it in a video for
Yeah.
street contests.
Sleep
so-
well tonight.
Yeah,
I'll be
sleep well.
watching.
Yeah, the whole time.
Yeah,
The whole
we'll
time.
all be watching, actually.
Yeah.
How old are your kids?
2, 6, and 10.
Oh, we've got to
and-
get the kids together.
I know for sure, because the other
Fight
thing
Club.
too.
Fight Club.
Yeah.
I've been trying to start a child fight club.
Child Fight Club,
Yeah.
Underground Fight Club.
God damn it, dude, because Jay Leno's in one.
Oh,
Why can't
exactly.
fucking child?
Is that gambling? What's going on?
He's just a clumsy
He's
old
just
dude,
clumsy?
yeah.
You know what's funny is right after the show, because we usually booze on Fridays on the show, and I'm
You
sure
can booze.
No, but I'm sure listeners are going to be like, dude, why isn't Ross boozing today? I have to take a field trip at 4:00 to Wicked today, and I'm not
Oh,
kidding.
God.
60 kids,
Like live?
60
Live?
The movie.
Oh,
the movie.
there's
Yeah. So
Moana
like.
2's coming out.
Yeah, we'll be at that and everything else. But I'm
should go
literally taking
together.
60
I think-
kids.
I think The Rock is playing Moana.
And Jesse just hit me up about that before I left the house, and I was like, huh? She's like, your
And drag.
parents got it. I was like, okay, cool.
Here's
So-
what you should do. You should play a drinking game I like to call Defying Gravity, right? And what it is you just drink as much as you can and try to keep standing up.
That's
With 60 kids at Wicked today.
Yes.
is that a game, Bob, or is that just alcoholism?
That feels like
Don't worry
arrest.
about anything's a game if you want it to be.
That's true.
sure
I
is.
used to race Ambien. You ever done that before?
No.
Like you're 30 minutes away from your house and you take an Ambien to see if you can make it home.
Yeah. And
I used to do that all the time.
yeah, I always won that battle, but some others have lost.
I'm alive.
Some others have lost.
It's a couple of deer and pedestrians, maybe.
Thank you guys so much for having me.
No,
Sure,
thank you for
anytime.
being
So fun.
here. Go to iTunes, rate the show a 5-star, and leave a quick review. Also, head on over to Spotify, just a 5-star, and you can walk away. For D'Anthony Holloway, I'm Ross Patterson. This is the Drinkin' Bros Podcast. Good night, everyone.